Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to episode 99 of Talking Asperger's with Andrew. My name's Andrew Marsh, and I'm autistic. My representation of autism is type 1 ASD, type 1 autism spectrum disorder, and I don't like that terminology. I prefer to use the older version of the description, which is Asperger syndrome. So that's what I'm going to use when I refer to my condition or to Asperger syndrome. If I'm referring to autism more broadly, I'll say autism. So I just don't particularly think it suits me particularly well to say I have a type 1 autism spectrum disorder. I'm happy with Asperger syndrome. And I work with employers to help them better manage people like me. These people who are amazingly talented and have wonderful skills, but sometimes we have some challenges, as many people do have challenges about being with other people and being in teams and working in those sorts of environments. So I use my 59 years of lived experience of having Asperger's, although I've only known for the last 8, to help employers better manage people like me. And I do that with a series of techniques and a program uh, which goes through step by step how to start something up with clear instructions all the way through to feedback at the end. And it's really important to get proper, positive, constructive feedback at the end of a project. So each week I do a different topic, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about something slightly different today. I'm going to talk about the language that we use in conversing with, managing, and being around people who are autistic and have Asperger's syndrome. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, what's language got to do with it? Language has everything to do with it. If Take a very simple example. You could be asked something by your spouse, and if you say the wrong thing or the inflection of the wrong thing, you're not going to get a happy response from that other person. You're going to get a defensive situation, potentially aggressive situation, or you never support me, you never do this. And all of that stems from the language that you use. It's not necessarily about what you say, although that is important. How you say it is also very important. And autistic people are very literal. We take things literally, and we take them so literally we can get caught out. I have been known to be gullible from time to time, and people can ask me something, and I've picked up on what I thought they meant, or I've took them exactly at the words that they've said. I'm going to give you a very simple, slightly funny example, and the joke was on me, so it's okay if you think this is funny. It's fine. I'm not offended. I was at a writing conference. I write novels as well as do what I do for businesses. I was at a conference, and the tutor was saying, he said that the Oxford English Dictionary have taken the word gullible out of the dictionary. And I went, really? Have they? And then there was silence, as everyone else in the room knew that I had just fallen for the joke. I didn't get it. I didn't get the joke until he said, are you sure, Andrew? And then the penny dropped, and I realized I'd fallen for the gullible joke. That's just a very simple example of us taking things literally. So if you want an autistic person or someone with Asperger's to do something, be very, very specific about the words you use. Don't be ambiguous. Don't be ambiguous. Go bam, straight in with very clear, specific, precise language. Otherwise, what you will have is the autistic person thinks, I don't quite understand that. And they will try and process what they think you meant. And sometimes we get that wrong. We can get it so spectacularly wrong that it can be very costly, can be detrimental to the business. Give you an example. You're working in a team. There's 4 or 5 people on the team, and there's 25 people in your department. But the company, the big company you work for, has 2,000 employees. You're writing a report for your boss. You finish it. He says, great. Okay, send it to everyone. So you do. You email everyone in the company, all 2,000 of them, and you send them the report. Please find and close the report on such and such a topic that was completed today. And 1,995 people who got that email are going to go, what? Why have I got this? What the boss meant was send it to all the people in the team. Boss didn't say that. Boss said send it to everyone. Autistic employee with Asperger's went, everyone. That's everyone. The whole of everyone, not just a little bit of everyone. Everyone means everyone. That means all. So all 2,000 people got the email. You might think, oh, now you're being pedantic. Yes and no. We can get things spectacularly wrong because we have to try and interpret vague instructions. And it's so easy to get that wrong. It's also quite easy to get it right. All the boss needed to do was say, send it to all the members in the team. There you go. That's an email to 6 or 7 people. Because it takes almost the same number of clicks to send to 2,000 people as it does to 7. It actually takes more clicks to send to 7 people than 2,000. Because when you're doing your email, you go to and you click all, and it takes everyone in the inbox who's registered with the email of that business. If you select all, it takes everyone. Everyone who's got an email address in the company, bam, everyone gets one. To select the 7 people in your team, you have to go to each of their names individually, unless you have set up a group. There is a group for that team, in which case you would pick the name of that group, bam, all those 7 people get the email. And if you're sitting there thinking, Andrew, you're just waffling, bear with me. Bear with me, because we autistic people with Asperger's syndrome can get things spectacularly wrong because we have to interpret vague instructions. So be very clear about what you say, and be one of the things that I experienced when I was a geologist, before I knew I had Asperger's, although I've always known I was different, was coming across very difficult managers. These would be managers who were lacking in some management skills. I'm being very diplomatic with my languages. Some of the people I worked for were complete psychopaths who had no interest in anything other than get it done by then. Not interested in having a discussion, not interested in how you do it, just have it done by then. I don't care, just do it. That is a phrase that I have heard many times from one of my managers. I don't care, just do it. Where's the want? Where's the will to want to work for that person who has no interest in having a discussion with you about what they want you to do? I don't care, just do it. Then, when you do something with your understanding of what they've said, however vague or detailed their description of what you want to do, you finish it and you give it to them, and they go, well, how's this? This isn't what I wanted. Well, actually, you weren't specific in what you wanted. You just said, do it. So I've done it. If you wanted something different, you should have said what you wanted, been clear, specific, precise at the outset. If you're requiring me to interpret what you want because you won't have a conversation, this is what you get. Unfortunately, those managers don't like it when that happens. And they tell their boss, their director, oh, Andrew's being difficult again. He's got this report wrong. It's dreadful, terrible, awful. Don't know what to do with him. Don't let him work with me ever again. And the manager, the boss, the director believes them. Doesn't believe you. Doesn't even come to ask you anything. Sorry, I'm leaking some of my experience as being a geologist, but it's very important to be clear, specific, and precise about the language that you use. And when you are having finished something and you're giving feedback on something, always start with the positive. That work you did for me last week, I really liked what you did about X, Y, and Z. Really good, really insightful, well put together, well presented. Make the autistic person that you're talking to, make them feel as though their contribution mattered, that they are valued. Because someone who feels valued and has worth in your business will go the extra mile to do those things. They will stay back to get things done a little later than normal. If you degrade your staff and humiliate them and put them under the cosh and berate them and always making changes and all of those things and create an atmosphere of tension and stress, your people are going to be going, time to go home. Goodbye. It's not finished. Do it tomorrow. You made too many changes this week. Can't get it done. And just go home. That's what happens. So you have to be constructive in all that you do. You can tell someone they haven't done something particularly well by being constructive. Start off, as I've just said, by saying, I liked what you did about X, Y, and Z. I thought that was good, insightful, good detail, and the like. Pleased with that. There's one or two things about this other part that I wasn't particularly happy about, or I thought you could have elaborated a bit more about. See what I've said there? I've said I'm not happy about it, but I've done it in such a way that it is gentle. It's not having a go at the employee. You did this wrong. You're useless. You're terrible. I don't know why you bother working, employ you. You do all this all the time. That kind of berating, chest thumping, aggressive management style shouldn't be around anymore. We're in the third decade of the 21st century. The 1980s started 42, 43 years ago. We have to do better. We know how to do better. Let's pretend that we know what we're doing, and let's deliver because we know what we're doing, and let's understand how to manage our people. Because if you manage your teams better, they will do better work. I don't need to go into HR studies about that, because I know, as a matter of fact, from my personal experience, if you are valued, you will do better work. If you're not valued, you won't care. It's how it works. Basic human nature. So use gentle language, praise where it's due. Start with praise. Say, well done. You got it done on time. I really like these aspects, but just wanted to touch base with you about these two, because I think we could do a little bit better next time. Perhaps at that point, you should say, maybe we should have had a discussion about those points before we got to that stage of the project. That's where you have to be open to them saying, well, actually, I did try to speak to you last Tuesday about it, but you were too busy. I sent you an email about it. I didn't get a response. So be aware that if someone is trying to have a conversation with you about the work they're doing, they're not standing in front of your desk trying to make you late and delay you with what you're doing. They need clarification about the task you have set them to do. And if they feel the need to come and ask you or send you an email, you have to take the time to have the conversation. Now, it might be that you're tied up until 3 o'clock this afternoon, in which case, say, I need to go do what I'm doing just now, but let's have a chat at 3 o'clock tea break, and we'll go through it then. We'll have 10, 15 minutes, whatever we need, and we can go through it then, and I can clarify what I needed, and you can make progress on it then. That's probably sufficient. If the person says, actually, I need it now, then you have to make a decision about whether you do that, you delay them, or you delay what you're doing on this other work that you're doing. Because managers and bosses will have more than one project on the go. I understand that. Done it myself many times. Had a program for the week. I've got 6 jobs on it, got 10 jobs on it. Some of those might just be send an email to a client, or copy a report and send another copy of the report to the client or to someone else in another team. Things that take short amounts of time, but they are still things that need to be done to meet requirements of what's being done within the projects that you've worked on. So juggling your workload is important. Understanding and using language to get people to work for you in a harmonious way is really important. Because if you, as I just said earlier, if you're a browbeating, chest thumping, table thumping kind of person, you're going to drive your good people away, and they're going to leave. They may not ever tell you they've left because they can't work for you. You're incompetent. You're unapproachable. You're a bully. They might not say that. They might not even say it at their exit interview. They'll say things like, well, I've been here for some time and I thought there were opportunities should present themselves to me that haven't happened. So I've looked elsewhere and I've got a promotion and I've got better paying conditions. They'll say things like that. But what they basically mean is I can't work for these people anymore. They're not helping me develop. They're not creating an environment in which it is it is comfortable and productive for me to work. Don't use those other words. Those other words basically say, can't work for you. Because many times, if you follow HR people and you look at business news, most people don't quit because of the job they are doing. They quit because they can't work for their manager or their supervisor. Studies everywhere have shown that people quit, bad managers, they don't quit because they don't like the job. There are some that don't like the job, pick the wrong job or whatever, but most people will quit a job because they can't work with the people around them, particularly their boss. That's the truth. So if you have a high turnover of people in one particular department, pay attention to what's going on. Because the boss will say, oh, no one wants to work for us anymore. They just don't knuckle down and they don't get on with it. And they're too difficult, and finding all those excuses when the train of people come in, stay 2 or 3 months and leave. You've got a boss problem. Primarily in those situations, you have a boss problem. And the people are just not accepting it. It's not acceptable for me to work in these conditions. I've tried to speak to them. They're not changing. So therefore, I have to go somewhere else to earn my living. And that's what they do. And they'll go. So it's really important that you create a viable, friendly, constructive atmosphere where people work. I'm not saying you all have to be best mates and are down the pub every Friday after work and all that. Not saying that, but you have to create an environment where people want to work and they support each other and help each other for the greater good. That's what you need to support, so that everyone is the effective, efficient, productive best. That's what you want. You know, if the nature of your business is governed by producing a certain amount of work per day or per week or per month, then you need to hit those targets, providing they're realistic. One of my first weekend jobs when I was at school was working at a mushroom farm, picking mushrooms, picking, grading, sorting mushrooms. That's what I did. There were two numbers. The first number was a certain amount on average of mushrooms per pound per day. So if you worked the shift, you had to reach a certain number of mushrooms per pound of mushrooms per day as your minimum. That's your target. And a figure of something like 15–20% above that is another figure, where if you exceed that figure, you get bonus. You get extra money for every pound of mushrooms you pick. So you're incentivized to pick quickly, do the job right, grade them, sort them, and all the rest of it, and clean up and tidy up after you, do all those things, but you're incentivized to do well. And if you don't, and your numbers are low, and they're continually low every week, every time, the supervisor will say, your numbers aren't up. What can we do to help you? Or you need to get a move on. So if that's how your metrics are based, you need to make sure that you support your team to be able to produce their numbers. That's not rocket science, is it? So be very careful about the language you use. Let me just have a look around here. Yeah, when giving feedback to someone, it's almost inevitably there's going to be something about improvement. It may be how you've negotiated and discussed with people in other departments or the client, whether you have that face-to-face or email contact or telephone contact with them. Sometimes you're not given the authority to do that. But when I was a geologist, I was able to speak to clients about things, but usually having to let my boss know what was going on in the meantime, which is fine. No problem with that. That's part and parcel of understanding what's done. But there may come a time where you need to say, over the last few months, we've noticed that this one particular aspect of what you do isn't quite working. Or we've noticed you're having difficulty or struggling with it, or it's taking longer to do this part of the project. Every time it's always the same thing. Now, what that says is one of several things. It could be that you haven't given clear instructions, and you still aren't giving clear instructions, and the person is having to guess, and you're not having that conversation with them about clarity of instructions and making sure they understand. Could be that the person doing the work doesn't quite have the skill set yet to be able to do that confidently and comfortably and efficiently the way that you want. So the first solution is quite simple. Have a conversation with them. Make sure you're available to have the conversation about that particular aspect. So what you would say is, we're doing another project which is similar to what we've done before, and notice that when we get to this particular part of it, you tend to struggle. What I'd like to do is, when you get to that point, come and see me. We'll have a cup of tea and we'll discuss it so that we can go through it, and I can hopefully clarify some of the things that you may not be quite so sure about. The other solution, or in tandem with that, might be that that person needs to go on some training. That training could be anything from sitting down with someone for a couple of hours who's fluent at that particular aspect, sitting down with them for a couple of hours, say, can you show me how to do this? I'm just not getting this. Can you just show me how to do this? And sit with them and let them ask the questions. Show them what's being done and let them ask the questions, and then let them do it themselves, see how they get on, and say, that's how you do it. Or it might be that there's more formal training is needed by going on a course, whether that's an in-house course or an external course. And there may be a cost to that, which might need to have manager's approval. But those are things that you can do. What you don't do is let the person continually struggle about that same point, project after project after project. That's just creating failure. That's creating an environment where the person is going to fail or not produce the satisfactory level of that part of the project, and you're letting them do it. That's a management failure. It's a management failure if that continually happens. You're not addressing the problem, which might be conversation, short in-house buddying or mentoring, or in-house or external training. If you continually let that slide, then it's a management failure, not an employee failure. Think about that. If you're continually having the same issues across the board, then you have a skill set gap and you need to train your teams. That might be easily fixed. Like I said, it might be a mentor to sit with for a couple of hours, or a couple of hours 2 or 3 times a week until they pick it up, or it might be something a bit more formal and with a cost to it, which needs to be approved. But if you continually let it pass, and there's always having these problems, then you have a management failure, not an employee failure. Think very carefully about that. What else have we got? We have got, yes, this is a good point, actually. It's about when you're having a conversation about feedback or giving a brief, giving instructions to someone, have checklists. Checklists are wonderful. I love checklists. Right? Because what the checklist means is that the boss has sat down beforehand and thought about what they need to cover. And they've organized their thoughts into a checklist, so that when they go through it, there's some logic, there's some form, there's some consistency, there's confidence that the boss knows what they're talking about to portray that to the teams. The other point about that is allowing the team to ask questions and give them the opportunity to ask open questions, rather than just say, is that all clear? Yes, no. And they're too scared to say no, I didn't quite understand what you meant. They won't say it. They won't say no. They'll say, yeah, we're fine. And then they go, well, what we got to do? And they all talk amongst each other. What we do? I don't know. He didn't say, didn't make it clear. Allow them to ask questions and make it open questions. So when you ask the question, say, what specifically about that aspect is it that you don't quite understand? Give me some detail, so that you're giving the person the opportunity to say what the problem is that they're having, so that you can say, oh, we can fix that with X, Y, and Z. Rather than just, that's all clear, isn't it, fellas? When you're wrapping up your bundle of stuff and you're ready to walk out the door, all you're expecting them to say yes, because you haven't given them the opportunity to actually have a discussion with you about it. So be very aware of how you do that, and allowing people, particularly autistic people, people with Asperger syndrome, the opportunity to ask open questions. Because what may happen is you might get asked a question that is you haven't been asked before. And they've come at it from a completely different angle. Oh, do you know, I've never thought about it like that. Oh, you're making me think. If it's important for them to ask the question in a certain way, you have to give it credence and answer it. Now, it may be that with those left field questions that you get, you don't have an answer straight away. That's okay, providing it's not for everything they ask. All right. But it's okay to say, do you know, I haven't got the answer for that at the moment, but let me go and look it up and I will come back to you. I will send an email to the team about that specific point so that you understand what was. But that's a good question. Thanks for bringing that up. That builds rapport with your team. It builds confidence that the employees can approach you, and you have to be approachable. Even if you have your own office and you keep the door shut, you still have to be approachable. If you're not approachable, you're not going to find these things out, and you're just going to be left at the end when it's finally delivered to you. This isn't right. This isn't what I wanted. Well, your door was shut and you weren't approachable. And what do you want us to do? I tried to speak to you. I've emailed you. I haven't had a response. What do you want us to do? That communication breakdown. You then blame the employee when you speak into your higher ups, and the employee gets tarred with, gets a bad rep. And they haven't done anything wrong. They've tried to communicate with you. So be very clear about what you need to do. And if you're asked a question you don't know, say, I don't know the answer, but I'll look it up and I'll get back to you. And then make sure you do. Don't sweep it under the carpet and pretend it didn't happen. Because all you'll have is the next time you have another project, same question, same issue, you're ignoring it. Management problem. So it's really important to understand the language that you use in speaking to autistic people, because they will take you literally. They will go off and do that thing. And you only find out at the end that you've not got what you wanted. Then you've got a problem. It's 4 o'clock on a Friday. You've got a problem. You've got an hour to fix it. And your team's going to go home. So, yeah, you've got a problem. When you give someone some work to do, you should know approximately what you're going to get at the end of it. So there shouldn't be any surprises. And that happens by setting your check-in points, being open to communication, and being able to answer questions when they collar you in the corridor and say, I need to speak to you about such and such. Can we do it sometime today? Because I'm about to cover that point and I want to get this sorted today. Rather than go, yeah. Oh, no, I'm really busy. I'm too busy. When you say, no, I'm too busy, what are they going to do? They'll try and talk to each other in the team. They might not have the answer. Or there might be 2 or 3 options. Which one do you take? I don't know. Management decision. You have to be approachable. You have to be approachable. So it's really important to understand the language that you use in everything, from giving instructions to supporting your teams to giving feedback. There will be times when, despite the best efforts of you, the team members, and everyone else, where something doesn't go right. And sometimes you need to have that person in for a conversation. Don't just throw it at them and say, I need to see you at 4 o'clock today. Yeah, can you give me a clue what it's about? No. If you're going to have the conversation that someone's performance is unsatisfactory or what they delivered wasn't what you expected, don't just dump it on them. Say, I'd like to speak to you about some aspects of the project that you did because there were some things that I wasn't happy about. I'd like to talk to you about these 3 points. Can we do it this afternoon at 4 o'clock? That way you're giving the person some opportunity and time to prepare. Because otherwise they're going to sit in the meeting with you and go, I don't know what you want me to say. Because when you don't get the answer that you want, you're going to be thinking about a disciplinary issue. Whole new ballgame. Creates a whole different system. And you've got a poor employee that might have tried their best, but because you haven't been approachable, the problem lies with you. And you're going to try. And managers who deflect that onto the team, That's where people leave. That's when they leave. They say, I'm not taking the rap for that. I tried to speak to him 3 times. I emailed him. That's when people will start to keep notes. They'll keep a little note in their diary, or they'll make a little spreadsheet of times that they've tried to speak to the boss about such and such and such and such. So that when that disciplinary comes around, they pull out the spreadsheet. There's 17 times this has happened in the last 3 months. And I've tried to communicate with you 17 times. I've spoken to you in the corridor. I've knocked on your door. I've dropped your emails. I hadn't had any response to any of them. I don't know what else you expect me to do. HR looks at manager. Manager gets stressed. Employees sitting, don't know what they want me to do. I've tried. I've done all that is in my power to try and get answers from my boss, and they haven't been able to respond. They have not responded. Don't know what you expect me to do. Because if the ultimate thing is I go above them and I speak to their boss, then you really know you're in a tricky situation, because you then got bosses and managers and senior managers and people trying to deflect what the issue is and what's the blame. People then get very defensive about their positions, and then you know the situation I'm talking about. It can be avoided with clear communication and using the right language. This next point is often overlooked. In fact, it's so often overlooked, it doesn't happen very often. And it should happen more times than it does. Many more times than it does. Give praise where it's due. If someone's done a good job, praise them. We're not talking about chocolates and flowers, but sit down with them and say, do you know, I've really appreciated that work you did for me for the last couple of weeks. That was a great report, great deliverable item. Client's really pleased with it. Well done. Thank you. You're sending the message to your employees that you appreciate them. They will feel valued, and they will maybe put in a bit more work next time if they, got to knuckle down and do an extra couple of hours on a Thursday night to get things ready for Friday the next time. Really important to make your teams aware of when they've done well, and keep doing it. Keep doing it. It's really important as an employee to feel valued. As soon as they don't feel valued, they're going to dust up their CV and they're going to start sending it off. And you'll never know until they walk in Friday afternoon. What's this? That's my resignation. What? You're leaving? What have we done? Where are you going? What are you going to do? I'm leaving. Don't need to give an explanation, and I'm not telling you where I'm going. And then they walk out. You've just lost all that experience. Happens. So people will inevitably leave. There's very few places where you don't have a turnover. But if your turnover in a particular department keeps going up and up and up, and there's always people going through, you might have a management problem and not an employee problem. Think about that. Think about what they're doing to cause people to leave after 2 or 3 months all the time. Or you just lose your 2 best people. Yeah, you're in trouble then. Because it costs time and money to replace people. Even if you think it's a menial task, you've got to have someone look through CVs. You've got to have someone pick candidates for interview. You've got to attend interviews. You may have to interview 5 or 10 people, or maybe more. Someone's got to make a decision. Time. All the while, you're not having your best people there to do the work. So production goes down, quality of work goes down, the team that's left gets stressed, and they start leaving. Really important. So language is very, very important. The language that we use is imperative that you get it right. That was today's Talking Asperger's with Andrew. Interesting language, isn't it? It's fascinating. Keep a lookout on Thursday for my YouTube channel when I'll be putting this video to this webinar on my YouTube channel. And I will be posting on Friday what next week's topic will be. Now, I know what next week's topic will be. Sometimes I don't. But next week is the 100th episode of Talking Asperger's with Andrew. And I'm going to have a recap right back to the very start. I'm going to start next week with what is Asperger's syndrome? How is it manifest? And what are people like who have Asperger's, and how can you help them in the workplace? So that's what next week is. It's right back to the fundamentals of what is Asperger's. And I've got some definitions for you that I really want you to pay attention to because they're really important. Again, language, really important. So that's this week's topic done and dusted. It just goes for me to thank you for watching, if you're watching this on replay. And don't forget, you can get in touch with me through my website, which is aspergersmatters.com, which is over my shoulder there. And there's a contact form there. Or you can get me at andrew@aspergersmatters.com. That's my email address. And I would welcome the opportunity to have a free 30-minute consultation with you to see how I can help you better manage Asperger's syndrome in your business. Because there's so many things that you can do, and virtually none of them have any significant cost. It's not like you've got to do this and that's 10 grand, and you've got to do that and that's 25 grand, and you've got to renew that and it's 15 grand a year. It's all about setting strategies in place to manage people with Asperger's syndrome and to manage them better, or better manage them. And I have a program for that. Would love to share it with you. That's all we have time for this week. So like I said, please look and subscribe and like my YouTube channel. And I'll see you next week for episode 100. What is Asperger's syndrome? And why you should be employing people who have it. Take care. See you next week.